The last thing we need to do before we dive in and look at some code is to clone the repository. You may choose to either fork the repository into your own and clone that, or you can just clone directly from my repo. If you've already done this, you can skip this video and move on to the next. Otherwise, I'll help you get the code. We'll use CocoaPods to get everything, all the dependencies downloaded and installed. We'll compile and build the app, and we'll be able to run it on the simulator. So, before we can clone it, please open your browser and point to the LoL Book of Champions repo or your own, and navigate to the repo homepage where you'll see the clone URL. Depending upon how you've set up your own GitHub account, you'll either see the Git clone URL or the HTTPS clone URL. If you've provided SSH keys, then you'll see the Git URL, and you can avoid entering your credentials when you clone the repository. Either way, GitHub will default to the best URL for the way you've set up your account. Go ahead and click this button if you see it beside the URL, which copies it to your clipboard. Otherwise, you can just highlight it and copy it. Next, open your terminal and navigate to your home folder. I like to put all of my projects in a subfolder called development, and you can put yours wherever you like. So navigate to that folder before you clone. Again, mine is called development, and I'm going to go ahead and use the git clone command and paste in the URL that I copied from the repo. In a couple of seconds, it will have cloned the repository, and I'll go ahead and navigate to that subfolder. And you'll see here that it has cloned everything. Previously, in another video, I led you through your setup of your Ruby environment. The reason I did that is that this project provides a gem file. And the gem file contains all of the Ruby gems that are necessary in order to prepare this project. That is, let's take a look at the gem file. And it only has 2 lines in it. The source line points to the Ruby Gems website, which is where all of the Ruby gems declared in this file will be resolved from. The next line is the gem command that specifies a Ruby gem that I want to install. It's called CocoaPods, and I'm saying go search for, download, and install the CocoaPods version 0.37.0 or any minor revision. Once the version of CocoaPods increments to 38, this line will not resolve that, and I'll have to go in and fix the gem file. Nonetheless, this is where the power of the Ruby environment comes through. The next thing I want to do is use the bundler to go ahead and resolve this. So I want to say bundle install. And what that's going to do is go resolve all of the dependencies of CocoaPods version 0.37.0. And that now has been installed. And the next thing I need to do is, as I pointed out earlier, is to use the rbenv command rehash, because I have a new CocoaPod, or a new Ruby gem, I'm sorry. And so that will ensure that I can use the pod command. So let's make sure that I have that. And you can see that I do. Once I have CocoaPods installed, the next thing that I can do is, let me clear my screen so it's a little bit easier to see. I have a pod file. CocoaPods is very, very similar to Bundler. We declare a file that contains the dependencies of the project that we're working on, and we'll use CocoaPods to resolve that. So let me clear that again and show you what my pod file looks like. So again, this is a fairly simple CocoaPods file, and I have two targets in my iOS project. The first is the LoL Book of Champions, and the second one is the test target that contains my unit tests. So for each pod, I've declared the dependencies. I'm using AF Networking version 2.53, Bolts, Cocoa Lumberjack, FMDB, and Typhoon, and then I'm using Kiwi for my test target. Now, in order to resolve all these, I simply have to use the pod command, install. And just like the bundler command, this will go look at cocoapods.org, which you can look at in your browser at your convenience, and it will resolve all of these dependencies. It downloads, installs them, and generates a pod target for my iOS project to use. So you don't have to worry about going and getting all of these libraries that I'm using in this application. CocoaPods will resolve all those for you. It will get the correct versions, download them, and build them. Just to verify, let's go ahead and open up Xcode. And when you're working with a CocoaPods project, it will generate a workspace file, and you'll need to make sure you open that as opposed to the PBX project file. So let's just go through that to make sure you open the correct one. Click the Open Project file, and we're going to scroll, we're going to scroll down here to my development folder and into the folder where I cloned the repository, and you'll see there's a workspace and an Xcode project file. Make sure you open the workspace. So I double clicked it and it will pull this in. You'll notice I have my two Book of Champions targets, and then when we did a pod install, it generated a pod target with all of the dependent libraries included. You'll see AF Networking, Bolts, etc. So if you see that, everything's set up correctly, and in the following videos we're going to take a dive into the code and have a look at how I built this application.